William sat on a cold, weathered bench in the heart of the city park, surrounded by the sights and sounds of a bustling winter afternoon. Children ran through the snow-covered grass, their laughter ringing through the air as parents chased after them, bundled in coats and scarves. William's eyes lingered on a father scooping his child into his arms, their shared laughter cutting through him like a blade. That could have been me, he thought bitterly, but here he was, alone, watching life happen to everyone else. The scene was vibrant, full of life, a stark contrast to the silence that filled William's sprawling, luxurious house. As one of the city's most renowned architects, William had achieved everything he'd ever set out to accomplish. His designs shaped skylines, his name adorned the covers of architectural magazines, and his wealth afforded him comforts most could only dream of. Yet, as he watched a young boy giggle while tossing snowballs at his father, William felt an unsettling emptiness gnaw at him. "You've done well for yourself. But what's it all for?" His mother's words echoed in his mind, soft yet unrelenting. Margaret had always been his anchor, offering gentle reminders of life's true priorities. But for years, he had ignored them, consumed by the hunger for success. A small girl stumbled nearby, and instinctively, William leaned forward to help. Before he could move, the child's father swooped in, scooping her up with a laugh and a comforting word. William froze, the scene hitting him harder than expected. Turning away, he buried his hands deep into the pockets of his tailored coat. The crisp air stung his face, but it couldn't distract him from the nagging thought that had haunted him lately. Was this really the life he wanted? With a sigh, William stood and walked toward his car parked nearby. The weight of years spent chasing accomplishments bore down on him as he drove toward his cold, empty house. As William drove through the quiet streets, memories he had tried to bury resurfaced. The soft hum of the engine couldn't drown out the echoes of laughter. Her laughter, once so constant in his life. At the time, William shrugged it off, telling himself, "She'll come back. She has to." But as the days passed and the apartment stayed empty, he drowned himself in work, using every late night as an excuse. The truth was harder to admit, that he'd chosen success over love, and now he was paying the price. With her warm smile and easygoing nature, she brought lightness to his world of deadlines, blueprints, and endless pressure. Sophie worked as a preschool teacher, a job she adored, finding joy in the simple, innocent moments with children. For William, Sophie had been a breath of fresh air. She balanced him, reminding him to appreciate life's little joys. There were afternoons spent wandering through bookstores, cozy dinners by candlelight, and weekends where work was just a distant thought. Those were the days he felt truly alive, when her laughter was enough to melt away the weight on his shoulders. But as his ambition grew, so did the demands of his work. His dreams of becoming the city's most sought-after architect took over his life. The time he once cherished with Sophie became an afterthought. Just one more late night, he'd promise, dismissing the quiet frustration in her eyes. The weekends disappeared, replaced by last-minute projects and networking events. One night stood out in his mind like a scar. It had been their anniversary, an evening Sophie had been planning for weeks. The apartment was filled with the soft glow of candles, and the scent of her homemade lasagna, his favorite dish, lingered in the air. But when William finally arrived, 2 hours late and carrying a stack of files, he barely noticed the effort she had made. "William, can we just have one evening together? No work, no calls." Sophie's voice trembled, pleading for his attention. "I'm sorry, Soph. It's a tough week. I'll make it up to you, I promise," he muttered, eyes still fixed on the blueprint he was reviewing. That was the last dinner they ever shared. A few days later, Sophie packed her things and left without a dramatic goodbye. The note she left behind was simple yet devastating. "I can't keep being invisible in your life. I deserve more than empty promises." At the time, William shrugged it off, convincing himself that she'd come back, that she'd understand his priorities. But days turned to months, and months into years. Sophie never returned, and William never reached out. He told himself he had no time for love, that his work was what truly mattered. Now, sitting in his car outside his sprawling, empty house, William felt the weight of his choices like never before. Sophie's face lingered in his mind, her laughter, her warmth, and the love he had let slip away. The next morning, William sat at his marble kitchen island, staring blankly at his untouched coffee. The quiet hum of the house surrounded him. No voices, no laughter, just silence. He scrolled through his packed schedule on his phone, client meetings, site visits, and back-to-back calls. The routine that once gave him pride now felt like a cage. Before he could overthink it, his phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a name he hadn't expected. Mom. William hesitated, his thumb hovering over the green button before he finally answered. "Hi, Mom," he said, his voice steady but tired. "William, I was just thinking about you." Margaret's voice was warm, carrying that familiar gentleness that always grounded him. "Are you coming home for Christmas this year?" William frowned. "Christmas? I don't know, Mom. There's so much going on at work. Maybe next year." "William," she interrupted softly but firmly, "you always say that. This year is different. I need you to come." Something about her tone made him pause. Margaret rarely insisted on anything. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, everything's fine," she replied, but there was a hint of secrecy in her voice. "I just have a feeling this Christmas will be special." William sighed, leaning back in his chair and rubbing his temples. "Okay, Mom. I'll come." "Good," she said, a smile evident in her voice. "I can't wait to see you, William." As the call ended, William felt a strange mix of emotions. Going home for Christmas wasn't something he'd done in years, always using work as an excuse. Yet his mother's words lingered in his mind. This Christmas will be special. That evening, as William packed a small bag, he glanced around his pristine, empty mansion. The silence that once felt like peace now felt oppressive. For the first time in years, he found himself looking forward to leaving it behind. William pulled into the driveway of his mother's modest house late in the afternoon. The contrast between this warm, inviting home and his cold, modern mansion struck him immediately. The porch was adorned with twinkling lights, and a wreath of pine cones hung neatly on the front door. As he stepped out of the car, the faint scent of cinnamon and fresh-baked bread drifted through the crisp winter air. "William." His mother, Margaret, opened the door with a wide smile, pulling him into a tight hug the moment he reached the porch. "I'm so glad you're here." "Good to see you too, Mom," William replied, the tension in his shoulders easing at her embrace. Come in, dinner's almost ready," she said, ushering him inside. The house felt like stepping back in time. The photographs on the walls hadn't changed. There were still pictures of him as a child, holding balloons or posing awkwardly in school uniforms. The smell of cooking and the warmth of the crackling fireplace welcomed him, and for the first time in years, William felt an odd sense of peace. But as he stepped into the living room, his movements came to an abrupt halt. Standing near the Christmas tree, helping decorate with gentle hands, was Sophie. Her back was turned, but he knew it was her. The slope of her shoulders, the dark waves of her hair. Then he saw them. 3 identical little girls, no older than 6, their bright eyes and laughter filling the room. His chest tightened, his pulse roaring in his ears. No, it can't be. When Sophie turned and whispered, "These are your daughters?" It was as though the world tilted. William felt the ground shift beneath his feet, his mind racing. How had he missed this? How could he have spent years chasing buildings and accolades while his own children laughed without him? William's heart seemed to stop. He could barely process the scene in front of him. Sophie turned slowly, her eyes widening in shock as they met his. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "William?" she whispered, her voice soft but weighted with years of unspoken words. He swallowed hard, his gaze shifting from her to the 3 girls, who were now staring up at him with bright, curious eyes. They had Sophie's smile, but something in their features, especially their dark hair and sharp gaze, reflected him. "Sophie," William managed to say, his voice thick with disbelief. What's going on? Who are they?" Sophie knelt beside the girls, gently placing her hands on their shoulders. "These are my daughters," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion she clearly tried to hide. Then, after a brief pause, she added softly, "Your daughters, William." The words hit him like a punch to the chest. William felt the air leave his lungs as he looked at the three girls again, searching their faces for something, anything that made this feel less real. "My daughters?" he echoed, as if saying it aloud might help him understand. One of the girls, the boldest of the three, stepped forward. She held a small silver ornament in her hand and tilted her head, studying him with innocent curiosity. "Are you our dad?" she asked, her tiny voice breaking the heavy silence. William froze, his mind racing. He looked to Sophie, who nodded ever so slightly, silently giving him permission to respond. Something inside him, something he hadn't felt in years, stirred. He crouched to her level, forcing his voice to steady. "Yes," he said softly, the word carrying more weight than anything he had ever spoken before. "I think I am." The little girl smiled and handed him the ornament. William took it with shaking hands as the other two girls cautiously approached, their identical eyes wide with curiosity. For the first time in his life, he didn't know what to say, what to do, or how to feel. Sophie stood in the background, her expression guarded yet vulnerable, watching him closely. Before anyone could speak again, Margaret entered the room, breaking the silence with her cheerful tone. "Well, isn't this a beautiful sight?" she said, smiling knowingly, as though she had planned this moment all along. "Come, dinner's ready. There's plenty for everyone." The girls darted toward the dining room, their excitement breaking the tension. William remained where he was, gripping the ornament tightly as he stood to face Sophie. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly, his voice a mix of hurt and disbelief. Sophie's expression softened, though her eyes glistened. "Because back then, I didn't think you were ready, William. And I wasn't strong enough to face it alone." Before he could respond, one of the girls called out, "Mom, come sit next to us." Sophie gave William a faint smile. "We should go. There's a lot to talk about, but not tonight." As they walked toward the dining room, William felt his world shifting beneath his feet. The life he had built, the life he thought he wanted, now seemed incomplete. The three little girls, laughing and calling for their mother, had unlocked something inside him that he hadn't known was missing. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about deadlines or designs. He was thinking about them. Dinner that evening was both surreal and heartwarming for William. The dining table, though modest, was beautifully set, with steaming dishes that filled the air with the comforting aroma of home-cooked food. Margaret chatted animatedly as the three little girls. Lily, Clara, and Emily giggled and whispered among themselves, sneaking shy glances at him. Across the table sat Sophie, her demeanor calm yet watchful, as if bracing for the unknown. William, for once, wasn't sure what to say. The conversation flowed around him like a current, but his focus remained fixed on the three little girls who called Sophie Mom. Each time they spoke, their voices, so full of innocence, hit him in ways he hadn't expected. "So, William," Margaret's voice broke through his thoughts, her eyes twinkling knowingly, "Lily here says she wants to be an artist. Isn't that right, dear?" The baldest of the triplets, Lily, beamed and nodded. "I love drawing. I can draw princesses, castles, and even dragons." William couldn't help but smile. "That's impressive. You must be really talented." Lily's face lit up with pride, while Clara, the quietest of the three, shyly added, "I like reading stories. Mommy reads to us every night." The mention of Sophie caught William off guard. He glanced at her, and for the first time that night, their eyes met. She offered a small smile, a fragile truce in the tension that still lingered between them. As the meal continued, William found himself leaning into the conversation more. He asked the girls about their favorite books, their school, and their hobbies. The more he listened, the more he realized how much he had missed. These weren't just three little girls, they were his daughters, and they were incredible. Later, after dinner, the girls dragged Sophie to the living room to help them with a puzzle they'd brought. William lingered nearby, unsure if he should join. It wasn't until Lily looked up and called, "You can help us too, you know," that he felt his heart crack open just a little more. "Okay," he said softly, kneeling beside them on the floor. The four of them worked together, laughing when the pieces didn't fit and celebrating when they did. William fumbled at first, but the girls' joy was infectious. Even Sophie, sitting across from him, couldn't suppress a chuckle at his clumsy attempts to find the right pieces. For the first time in years, William felt something shift inside him, a warmth he hadn't known he'd been missing. It wasn't about deadlines or success. It was about this: laughter, connection, and the simple joy of being present. As the evening wore on and the girls began to yawn, Sophie gathered them for bed. "Say goodnight," she said gently, guiding them toward the stairs. "Goodnight," Lily shouted enthusiastically. "Goodnight, Daddy." William froze, the word daddy ringing in his ears. Sophie looked at him carefully, as if gauging his reaction. William swallowed hard, his voice softer than he intended. "Goodnight, girls." The three of them disappeared upstairs, leaving William and Sophie alone in the soft glow of the Christmas lights. He exhaled slowly, turning to face her. "They're incredible," he said quietly, the weight of the words settling in his chest. Sophie nodded, her voice gentle. "They are, and they deserve someone who'll be there for them, not just for tonight, but always." William met her gaze, the unspoken challenge hanging in the air. "I want to try, Sophie. I don't know how to make up for all the time I've missed, but I want to be part of their lives. I'm ready to be here, if you'll let me." Sophie studied him for a moment, her eyes softening. "We'll see, William. Actions speak louder than words." That night, as William lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, he knew one thing for certain. For the first time in his life, he had something to fight for that wasn't tied to success or wealth. He had a family, and he wasn't going to let them slip away again. The next morning, the soft, golden light of dawn filtered through the curtains as William awoke to the unfamiliar sounds of life in the house. Laughter, little feet running across the wooden floors, and hushed voices filled with excitement. For a moment, he just lay there, letting the warmth of it all wash over him. When he made his way downstairs, he found the girls gathered around the Christmas tree, their small hands eagerly unwrapping the gifts his mother had thoughtfully placed for them. Lily squealed with joy as she found a set of art supplies, while Clara hugged a thick storybook to her chest like it was the most precious thing in the world. Emily, the quietest but sharpest observer, smiled softly as she showed her new puzzle to William. Sophie stood in the corner, watching them with an expression of quiet contentment. She held a mug of tea, the soft glow of the Christmas lights dancing in her eyes. When William approached, she glanced at him cautiously, but with far less of the guarded look she'd worn the night before. "You're up early," she said softly, offering him a faint smile. "Didn't want to miss this," William replied, his voice unusually tender as he watched the girls. "They're amazing, Sophie. You've done such a good job with them." Sophie turned to face him fully, her expression softening at his sincerity. "I did what I had to do. But I'm not the only one they need anymore, William. They deserve a father, someone who shows up, who doesn't just make promises, but keeps them." William nodded, her words hitting him with a weight he was ready to carry. "I'm not that man I used to be, Sophie. I know I've made mistakes, and I can't erase the past. But I'm here now, and I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you and to them that I'm not going anywhere." Before Sophie could respond, Lily ran up to them, her face flushed with excitement. "Mom! Daddy! Can we go outside and play in the snow? Please?" The word daddy stopped William for a beat, the sound of it both humbling and overwhelming. Sophie raised an eyebrow at him, silently asking if he was ready for the role. Without hesitation, William smiled and nodded. "Of course. Go grab your coats." The morning unfolded like a scene from a dream William hadn't realized he'd been longing for. Out in the snow-covered backyard, he chased the girls around, their laughter echoing through the crisp winter air. They built snowmen with mismatched scarves and waged playful snowball battles. Sophie watched from the porch, her heart warming at the sight of William embracing a role he never would have imagined for himself just days ago. As the sun began to set, the family gathered inside, sitting together near the glow of the fireplace. William settled into a chair while the girls snuggled under a blanket, their heads resting on Sophie's lap as she read to them. The soft cadence of her voice, paired with the gentle crackling of the fire, wrapped the room in a cocoon of peace. William couldn't look away. This simple, beautiful moment was what he had been missing all along. Success, awards, and riches had never filled the void inside him, but here, in the warmth of his mother's house, surrounded by Sophie and their daughters, he felt whole. As the story ended and the girls drifted off to sleep, William quietly approached Sophie, who was tucking them in for the night. "Thank you for letting me be here, Sophie. I know this isn't easy for you." She turned to look at him, her gaze steady but gentle. "You're right. It's not easy. But I can see you're trying, William. And that means something." For the first time in years, William felt a spark of hope. A hope for redemption, for healing, and for a future he thought he'd lost. He knew the road ahead would be long, but for the first time, he was ready to take it. That Christmas night, as the house grew quiet and still, William sat near the glowing tree, reflecting on the life he'd been given a second chance to rebuild. As the clock struck midnight, the soft glow of the Christmas tree lights filled the room. William sat silently, gazing at the peaceful scene around him. Sophie and their daughters, now asleep, bundled in blankets near the warm fireplace. For the first time in years, his heart felt full. In that quiet moment, William realized that success wasn't about skyscrapers or accolades. True success wasn't measured by the buildings William had designed or the awards on his shelves. It was here, in the giggles of his daughters, in the warmth of Sophie's smile, and in the quiet promise that he would never take this second chance for granted. For the first time in years, William wasn't looking back at what he'd lost. He was looking forward to what they could build together as a family. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to reflect. Who in your life deserves more of your time and attention? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Reach out, reconnect, and cherish those who matter most. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that second chances are possible, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartfelt stories. Stay tuned, there's always more to discover.